our hard work is not in vain. Now, speaking of literacy, it's not every day that one has the opportunity to introduce an American icon who has spread the joy and benefits of literacy throughout our nation for more than 20 years. A prolific actor, presenter, director, and author, LeVar Burton made his major film debut in 1977 as Kunta Kinte on the award-winning drama series Roots. He went on to appear in classic television shows like Fantasy Island, Trapper John M.D., and Love Boat, just to name a few. In the early 80s, there was a growing concern that children were becoming so captivated by television that they abandoned reading altogether. In 1983, as a result, Reading Rainbow was born. Clap it up. This magazine-style series celebrated literacy by reading stories out loud to viewers while exploring the themes of books on location in places that were directly related to the book's subject matter. This show brought the words of children's books to the hearts of millions. Running for 21 years and garnering 26 Emmy Awards, Reading Rainbow remains a cultural phenomenon which bridges the gap between television and literacy. There are many who think we still need Reading Rainbow right now. With other iconic roles, including Lieutenant Geordi LaForge on the timeless Star Trek franchise, clap it up. Martin Luther King Jr. on the cartoon special, Alfred Martin, clap it up. LeVar Burton has become a champion of freedom, literacy, and venturing where no other man has ever gone before. He is a living legend. He is a national treasure. But you don't have to take my word for it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. LeVar Burton.
Carl got Fantasy Island in there. He got the Love Boat in there. That was all right, Carl. I wanted to meet the guy who came out after that. I was like, damn. Well, good evening. Oh, we can do better than that. Yeah, you know, you will hear me speak this evening about my mother, Irma Jean Christian, and among the many things that my mother taught me, she taught me that it is always appropriate to speak when spoken to. Perhaps some of you had a mother who encouraged you similarly. So I'll say it again. Good evening. Do y'all know our interviewer and interlocutor? We did not, but you are well known in these parts, are you not?
That's right. My name is Jamar Raming. I serve as the director of the Wilmington Institute Library, the premier library on the East Coast.
Thank you, Jamar, for being willing to sit in the other chair.
Yes.
I appreciate you.
So, can I ask you a few questions tonight?
I think that's why we're here.
Okay. All right. So you just had a birthday a few days ago. So you turned 83? No, 63.
I turned 63.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So what did you do?
This is the new face of 63, y'all.
That's right.
It's getting younger and younger. I worked on my birthday. I was in Vancouver working. I flew home on, my birthday was Sunday. I flew home Sunday so I could spend Monday with my family. So I did. What did I do otherwise? You know what, this is not just my birthday, it's Black History Month. So Kunta celebrates the entire month of February, so. I'm still celebrating, Jamar, I'm still celebrating.
Well, good. Well, we're glad you're here. You know, when I looked back at the earlier days of your career, I just noticed that most of your roles consisted of coming-of-age narratives of young Black men. And so with that said, would you share with us any coming-of-age experiences or moments in your own life as a Black man in America?
Wow. I can honestly say that's a question I've never been asked before. You know, it's interesting. I consider myself a storyteller. It's what I do. It's who I am. Whether I'm acting, writing, directing, producing, or podcasting. I have a podcast now, LeVar Burton Reads. My people! In that vein, on New Year's Day, I released a new series on video called This Is My Story, wow, in which I tell the stories of 6 people, 6 individuals, stories of the Black experience, what it means on a day-to-day basis, on the daily, to be Black in America. And the story that I tell that is my own in this series, the first story I tell is my own, and then I tell 5 stories of friends of mine. And the story I tell is one where a young 19-year-old from Northern California, from Sacramento, moved to Los Angeles in the late 70s to study theater at the University of Southern California. My second year of studies at USC, without a car, I knew that I needed to be closer to campus. I got a position as a boarder in the Jewish fraternity house, Sigma Alpha Mu. I was the first person of color to live on the row at USC. Now, USC row, 28th Street, is the home to some of the sons and daughters of some of the most famous, influential, and moneyed people in America. And as such, Los Angeles Police Department has a long-standing relationship and presence on the row at USC. The first 4 or so weeks of my sophomore semester at college, I was stopped almost nightly by the LAPD, always answering the description of someone who was stealing car stereos in the neighborhood. I lived in a fraternity house. It was noisy until at least midnight. And that's when I could start studying. When I finished my studying at 2, I would walk east on 28th Street to Figueroa, turn right, and head to the Vagabond Motor Hotel and Coffee Shop. Now, one particular night, as I'm making that trek to the Vagabond for my traditional fries and strawberry shake, when you're 19, you can eat anything. My egress was cut off by an LAPD black and white cruiser, and the doors fly open, and I am staring down the barrel at a shotgun. Now, what happened next is a moment that changed my life forever, because I noticed that the officer on the passenger side, not the one with the shotgun, but the one with the flashlight, he had stopped me the night before, and the week before that. And so it dawned on me in a moment, the penny dropped. They don't see me at all. What they see is someone who does not belong there in their estimation. So that was a formative experience for me. It was at the age of 19 that I got that in the eyes of some, I had no individuality, and I had no value, and that I had no reason to be where I knew I belonged.
So I guess in this picture here, you're probably about 18 or 19. So what?
No, that picture is the very first morning of the very first episode of Reading Rainbow.
Okay. So let's say that you're 18 or 19 in this photograph here. What advice would 63-year-old LeVar give 19-year-old LeVar?
It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. I think as young people, we tend to worry about all kinds of things. I know I'm no exception. I still worry about things I have no business worrying about. Mostly because I have no control over the outcome. So what's the worry for? It's wasted energy, really. I would caution him to not be so concerned with that which he could not control.
Okay. So let's talk about your parents. What kind of legacy did your parents leave behind?
I was telling some folks earlier in the meet and greet, my mother is the single most dominant and important influence in my life. I am the man that I am because that woman was the woman that she is. Irma Jean Christian. Whenever I get an opportunity to speak my mother's name in public, I do. Irma Jean, that's who she is. My mother was a reader. She was an English teacher first. So I grew up in a house where reading was mandatory. I mean, you there were certain things that we just knew in my family. And you were going to do it, and you were going to do it Irma Jean's way. That was rule number one. My mother was 4'10" and a half, weighed about $1.25. Till the day she died, I was afraid of that woman. You laugh. I'm serious. Irma Jean did not play. Irma Jean had expectations, right? Irma Jean had a plan. She got out of Kansas City, Missouri. She did not want her children raised in the Midwest. She wanted California. She wanted that place where liberal thought had taken hold. She did not want her black son to become a statistic. She wanted me to have an opportunity to reach my full potential in life. And she knew that I could not do that behind bars.
Wow. So at 13, you were studying to be a priest.
I was a Catholic at the time.
Yeah, and you've expressed that you've walked away from organized religion. Would you discuss that trajectory?
The trajectory? The trajectory is being raised by a single parent. I was thirsty for male role models. Thankfully, I had a few good ones. The football coaches at St. Anne's Elementary, Mr. Slaughter and Mr. Bruce, both black men who had children in the school. Rocky Balboa, Scoutmaster of Troop 416, he was a surrogate father to me. And then priests. Priests were some of the most positive male role models I had in my life. And because my mother, after she had a career as a teacher, she became a social worker, I grew up in a house where it was modeled that one's life should be about service, right? And I suppose that there was the part of me that was always attracted to theater arts that sort of hooked into the drama of the liturgy of the Catholic Church. You know, the Mass is a play, right? And there's a lot of drama and spectacle. The vestments, the candles, the incense. I mean, it's all theater, right? It's theater. And I think that I know I was attracted to the theatrical nature of the presentation of the Eucharist. That liturgy spoke to me in imagery, if not substance. So there became a point in my education as a seminarian that I was exposed to points of view that didn't line up with the Catholic parochial point of view, and I found those points of view not only interesting and fascinating, but to have validity. And so the more I learned about the world, the less I wanted to play for one specific and particular team. Wow. So I left the seminary, and then ultimately left Catholicism as well.
All righty. So moving on, I mean, most of us know Mr. Burton as Kunta Kinte in Roots. Would you please tell us how you landed that role? And it's a question you've probably been asked for 40 years, but so if you'd oblige us.
It's a wild story. I am, Jamar, a person who believes that everything happens for a reason. I don't believe that there are such things as accidents in the universe. I believe that all energy is purposeful. Part of the challenge of being a human being sometimes is to be okay with not knowing what the purpose for certain things are. To be comfortable in the uncertainty of it all. But I do believe that there is a purpose to all things. There is a reason and a season to all of this. So having left the Catholic seminary and discovered while I was there theater arts, and then gotten a full academic scholarship to USC, to the University of Southern California, one, because as a California resident, I was able to get more money to go to school than if I had gone to, say, NYU, where I was accepted, or Carnegie Mellon, where I was also accepted. So my point is that there are all of these factors that contribute to where we stand in any given moment. And where we stand in any given moment is exactly where we are supposed to be. I was there at USC immersing myself in the language of storytelling for the theater, and I could not have been happier. My intention was to graduate in 4 years with a degree of Bachelor of Fine Arts in drama, USC being only one of 2 universities at that time in 1974 that offered a BFA in drama. In fact, USC didn't even have a school of theater at the time. It was a department of drama. We had a school of music, we had a school of dance, we had a department of drama. They have a big-ass school now. They got new theaters, they got everything now. So being there with an intention to graduate with that degree and move to New York and hustle my way onto the Broadway stage, that was the plan. That was my plan. Wow. That was it. That was all I had, right? People would ask me, well, what are you going to fall back on? I did not have a fallback plan. Didn't think I needed one. That's how naive I was. But I believe that if you have a plan and you follow that plan will put you where you need to be so that, I tell kids all the time, take the step that's in front of you. Don't worry about the next step. The next step will take care of itself, right? Walking for human beings is like a controlled fall. That other foot is always going to come out and stop you from falling on your nose, right? Walking is a controlled fall. You take the step that's in front of you, the next step automatically comes, you see. So had I not decided to become a priest and taken those steps, I wouldn't have been at USC when they were casting for this mini-series called Roots. They had already seen every young black kid in Los Angeles who had an agent. They had done a casting session in Chicago, another one in New York, and now they'd come back to Los Angeles again and had cast the net wider. They called the drama schools at UCLA, at Cal Arts, at USC. I was in the right place at the right time to take a hold of my destiny path. So Roots was, in fact, my very first professional audition, and I killed it. But I killed it because I was supposed to. I killed it because from the very first moment I read any of the scenes, I knew who this kid was. I knew how he thought. I knew his responses to the events in his life. I had been preparing to play Kunta Kinte my entire life. I knew what injustice felt like. I knew the strength of my own identity. I knew the love that had been pumped into me. I knew how it would feel to have all of that ripped away from me. I did not need to do any research for this role. 19 years as a black boy in America was all the preparation I needed. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. You know, just stepping into that role, and what were the challenges of playing that role?
The challenges were to not wet my pants. My very first day as an actor, as a professional actor, Cicely Tyson played my mother.
Wow, wow.
I don't know if you all know who Cicely Tyson is. This woman is legend. Cicely Tyson is 97 years old these days and looks like she's 50. I mean, whew. Maya Angelou, Dr. Maya Angelou, in that very same scene played my grandmother, Nyoboto. I worked with Moses Gunn, Harry Rhodes, Jitu Kumbuka, later on Louis Gossett Jr. I mean, I was in the presence of some of the founding nucleus of the Negro Ensemble Company, and I was a kid from Sacramento who didn't know anything. But I knew how to fake it. You know, act as if you belong.
Wow.
I acted as if. And they assumed that because I was there that I had the chops, and they respected me, and they schooled me. They taught me everything I needed to know about being a professional actor in this business. And I drank up every drop.
Wow. Wow. So given that you started your career, you know, addressing injustice and black history and race relations, what are your thoughts on the racial climate today? And do you think we've made progress since the debut of Roots in 1977?
Have we made progress since 1977? I think we have. I know we have, you know. We had a black president. I never thought I'd see that in my lifetime. And I was always puzzled, confused, just, I never understood. After Barack Obama was elected, people would say, well, now we're in a post-racial America. The hell we are. Post-racial? There isn't anything that happens in this country, in this culture, that is not impacted by race in America. Nothing, no thing. Racism in America is the reason America is the world power that it is. America made a commitment to chattel slavery that no other slave-holding nation on this planet made. And that commitment was to break the soul of the enslaved. Slavery had been practiced before. And the next white person that says, well, black people had slaves too, say it to my face. Do not equate the two. Yes, there was a form of slavery in Africa, and it was possible to earn oneself out of that system of slavery. It was servitude. Slavery, as practiced in America, is a whole other animal, y'all. A whole other beast. Slavery and its attendant legacy of racism is the predominant force that has shaped this country the way it has, to be what it is. Don't get it twisted. Slavery is at the heart of everything that happens in this country and this culture. I like to say about privilege, privilege is not having to think about it, right? I just directed an episode of NCIS NOLA where I told a story of wounded warriors who live in wheelchairs and play this amazingly violent version of rugby called Murder Ball. And what I recognized through the filming of this episode is that I'm privileged. I live in an able body. I'm privileged from the perspective of somebody who lives in a wheelchair. If you are white and do not think you are privileged, answer me this question. When was the last time you woke up frightened that your child, son or daughter, were out there in the streets and were in danger of being killed by law enforcement? Privilege is not having to think about it. What was your question?
No, you answered it.
Okay, good.
So shortly after Roots, you became this iconic figure for literacy and reading with Reading Rainbow.
Yeah.
Could you talk about where the idea came from and how you got involved with that?
Well, the idea wasn't mine. The idea belonged to a woman named Twyla Liggett, who was first a teacher, an educator, and then a television producer. Twyla was trying to create a show that addressed what educators know to be the summer slide, right? The summer loss phenomenon. When a child's learning how to read, they take that 3-month summer vacation, and then their reading and comprehension skills suffer. So this was a really counterintuitive idea, the idea being, wow, let's take advantage of the opportunity of proximity and engagement, right? It's no secret where America's children were hanging out, especially during the summer in the early 80s. It was front of the TV, right? So the idea was to meet them where they were and then take them where we wanted them to go, to use the very powerfully engaging factor of television to promote literature, literacy, and the written word. And it worked.
What advice do you have for parents to inspire their kids to read in the digital age?
Well, the digital age is no different than any other age in terms of getting our kids to read. I ask parents 2 things. Number one, what's your child passionate about, right? People ask me all the time, well, how do I get my child to read more? Well, I ask them, what is your child passionate about? It is our passions that tend to drive our reading appetites. I say all the time, if your child loves superheroes, then damn it, buy your kids some comic books. I don't care what the gateway drug is. I really don't. I simply want kids to read because it's a habit. It's a habit, right? It's a muscle that has to be built up. I also ask parents, do your children see you reading? You know how our kids are sponges, you know? Reading is not the kind of thing you can say, do as I say, not as I do. You gotta show up. You gotta have boots on the ground. You need to read in front of your kids. My mother took 2 daily newspapers when I was a kid. Anybody remember daily newspapers? So
you were once in a previous interview asked about the camaraderie of Kanye West and President Trump, and you said, here we go again with these non-readers. And so with that said, would you talk about what are your thoughts on reading and the state of our democracy?
Wow. I'm really saddened, Jamar, by the state of our democracy. I believe that in this era of fake news and alternate facts, I mean, the whole idea just makes me shiver. There is no such thing as an alternate fact. It's either true or it's not. It's either false or it's not. You can't have a version of the truth that is contradictory to my version of the truth if we're talking about the same truth. Look, my mother taught me to not go for the okie doke, okay? I said in every episode of Reading Rainbow, but you don't have to take my word for it, which means pick up a damn book. If you can read in at least one language, you are free, in my estimation. You are literally free. No one can pull the wool over your eyes. No one can tell you that the sky is black and the sun is blue, because you can figure it out for yourself, because you have the gift of literacy. An illiterate populace is a gullible populace. I think we have reached an era in the history of this democracy where the republic is in peril. I don't know that we can honestly say we have a democracy in this now moment. Well, look, I'm just going back to my high school civics. The executive, the legislative, and the judicial. Those are the three branches of government that control all these things, right? Well, the legislative branch is deadlocked in partisan politics, and it seems as though the only thing that's important where Congress is concerned is voting along party lines. The judicial, our Attorney General is acting like he's the president's personal lawyer. That's not what the founding fathers had in mind. The framers wanted these three distinct and different branches of government to provide checks and balances for each other. I think the executive branch has gone hog wild crazy. I do not believe that this current administration has the best interests of the people of the United States at heart. I do not believe that to be true. They have demonstrated time and time and time again that what they are interested in is more power, more money, and by any means necessary.
Now,
so if you ask this black man, America's broken.
so speaking of politics, I received a question from James C. from Newark, Delaware. And this is what James wants to know. He said, last year on Twitter, I mused about you possibly running for office, and you favorited my tweet. I'm wondering if that's something you are actively or passively considering.
Hear me out. If you should ever hear about me running for office, you have my permission. Please slap me upside the head. It will have been a certain sign that I have lost my mind.
Well, there's the answer to James's question. So as a librarian, you know, I'm finding a major paradigm shift in the last couple of years is that we're inundated with memoirs. I mean, people, they get hit by a bus and they decide to write a memoir about it. But someone as iconic as you, there's no memoir yet. Do you have any intentions of writing a memoir?
I am finally ready to put some of this down on paper.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you were stranded on a desert island and could take one book with you, what would that be?
The memoir. 1001 Arabian Nights. Those men.
Wow. If I could take one book, wow. I suppose, could it be a series?
Just one.
Just one.
Just one.
Just one. I would take, boy, wow. Yeah. I'm stumped, man.
Stumped?
I'm stumped. One book? Are you kidding?
Just one.
A 1001 Arabian Nights.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. Ouch, that hurt, Jamar. Ouch.
So what are you reading these days?
Well, right now, because of the podcast, I'm reading a lot of short fiction. My podcast is one in which I read one piece of short fiction in every episode. This week, I have had the great good fortune of reading short stories by Toni Morrison, Kurt Vonnegut, and James Baldwin. It's been a good week. On the podcast, I lean heavily into science fiction, short fiction. It's my favorite genre. When I'm reading for pleasure, I'm generally reading some science fiction or fantasy. It was what I cut my teeth on. But yeah, a lot of short fiction in preparation for the podcast. Wow. I've got a long list of books, though, that are waiting my attention.
So, are there any Star Trek fans here?
My people.
Let's talk about Star Trek. How did that materialize? How did that happen?
In the Everything Happens for a Reason file, in 1985, I think it was, I did a TV movie called Emergency. Terrible TV movie. It was really bad. But one of the producers was a man named Robert H. Justman, Bob Justman. I knew that name. Robert H. Justman was an associate producer on the original Star Trek. See, I was a big Star Trek fan when I was a kid. Gene Roddenberry's vision of Star Trek was one of the few examples of people who looked like me that was a positive portrayal of black people. When I was growing up, this is, the early 70s, the nightly news was either black men are committing all the crime in urban America, or black men are the only ones who are being killed in the theater of war in Vietnam because we sent an overwhelmingly, predominantly population of black and brown men to fight our wars. So seeing Nichelle Nichols on the bridge of the Enterprise was huge for me. What Gene Roddenberry was saying to me as a storyteller was that when the future comes, there would be a place for me. I was all about that. So I was a huge Star Trek fan, big time. Wow. So when I got the call from Bob Justman saying, we're doing a new Star Trek over at Paramount, I remember, because I used to pump Bob for stories. Just tell me stories about Star. Every day at lunch, tell me another story, Bob. Tell me another story. So he knew I had passion for Star Trek. And when he was working with Gene to mount the new show, I got a call. He said, are you interested? I know you've never done a television series, and I hadn't. He said, but are you interested? I said, is Gene involved? He said, yes. It's like, who do I have to kill? I was in.
Wow.
I wanted to be in that, in a reboot of Star Trek. This is before we even knew the word reboot.
So there's a new version coming out, Picard. Are you taking part in that?
I'm sorry?
Are you taking part in that?
In what?
In Picard.
In Picard. What's that? Jamar.
Star Trek Picard.
If I could tell you, I wouldn't.
Okay. Hey, I deserve that.
Let's let it be a surprise, shall we?
All right.
Okay. Some folks just have to go home disappointed. Because I'm not saying shit.
Okay, so Geordie LaForge was blind but could see using his visor. What life parallels could you draw from that aspect of LaForge's experience?
Wow. These are good questions, y'all. These are really good questions. I think that we all walk around with a little blindness. I know I do. I think that part of the appeal of a character like Geordie is the commitment that they have to not allow their disability to get in the way of their excellence. And I feel like as a black man, I understand that ethic intimately well. The idea of not allowing what is perceived to be my handicap in this society, my skin color, to not allow it to get in the way of my excellence.
Okay. So Star Trek has always shown visions of the future. What, in your opinion, is the role and importance of the series in 2020?
I think the role of Star Trek in storytelling is as it has ever been. It is inspirational. It is to provide some theoretical roadmap for how we get from where we are to where we believe we want to be. I think we keep professing that we want to continue to evolve as a species while continuing to display utterly Neanderthal behavior. But we keep saying we want to reach for the stars. We keep saying we want to have technology sophisticated enough to allow us to go not only off planet, we're talking now about Mars, not just the moon, going beyond the moon to Mars. It takes a certain level of sophistication to be a star-faring species. And I think one of the things that we will eventually figure out, hopefully sooner rather than later, is that that effort of space exploration is non-sustainable unless and until we pool our resources. No one nation can handle this on their own. That's why the International Space Station is so important. It's a cooperative effort. If we're successfully going to be able to venture out among the stars, we're going to have to settle all of our differences on this big blue ball first.
Now, this is a mouthful. This is a question from Jorge Harada in Austin, Texas.
How did he get a question?
Well,
He's not in Delaware.
Well, he wants to know, how did...
He is like, LeVar, you are not running this. I am.
No. So he wanted to know how your character, how he figured out how to shunt the deuterium from the main cryo pump to the auxiliary tank. That's what he wants to know.
You tell Jorge. It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Hey, so Alquana from Felton, she's from Delaware, so we won't discriminate.
I'm in.
And she wants to know, I'm interested in hearing your opinion about how the character you portrayed in Star Trek affected not only diversity based on race, but those with disabilities.
Yeah.
And I remember in late 70s, you did Demi.
A deaf mute accused of murder, yes, called
Yes,
Dummy, yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Thank you. It was very sweet. Like Nichelle Nichols was there to represent for people of color when I was growing up. I'm really proud that Geordie has been there for the physically challenged. Almost every day of my life, somebody comes up to me and says they become an engineer because of the influence of Star Trek. I love it when people who are wheelchair bound or dealing, with any sort of issue of ability in their lives. I love that they see themselves represented in the character of Geordie. I think that's really powerful. Representation matters. It absolutely does.
Wow. So back to LeVar the man. You've been married for 27 years, which is an anomaly for Hollywood. What do you credit the longevity to? What do you credit the longevity of your marriage? And what advice would you offer to a newly married couple?
I credit the success of my marriage to the grace, wisdom, and forbearance of my wife, Stephanie. She's an amazing woman. No, seriously, y'all, I am not easy to live with. I am not easy to live with. I think that making my wife the most important person in my life has proven to be the best move I ever made.
Wow.
Yeah. As far as advice, I don't know. Make each other laugh every day, That was always my secret power. With my mom, I could always make her laugh. I pride myself on my ability to make my wife, Stephanie, laugh. And it is the laughs that will get you through the tough times. And you will have tough times. I mean, you will. It's a guarantee. How you fight is really important. I would say take the time to establish fair rules for conflict engagement. We don't fight fair, human beings. We get in there. We know what buttons to push. I think conflict in relationships, we don't have much training in it. We sort of try and figure it out on the fly. And a lot of divorce in this culture. A lot of people who just give up. Our commitment is to not give up, that no matter what, we're going to work it out. No matter what, we're committed to working it out.
Okay. Wow. So you have two children.
Oh, there she is. Oh, my wife. Wow. Woo.
And
She kind of cute, huh? She cute.
So you have two children, and your daughter got on your Twitter feed, and she said that she's better at you in video games.
She is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you concede.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. However, it was video games that served as our bonding platform when she was growing up. We started with like CD-ROM games, then graduated to where we played Nintendo and then Tomb Raider, and I've got a graveyard of old playing consoles, right? I have my Sega Dreamcast still in a drawer somewhere. No, seriously. Actually, I think she stole it. She's got it now. But video games was what we did together. Like, I love it when women come up to me and say, you know what, I watched Star Trek with my dad. It was our way of bonding, right? Mika wasn't a huge Star Trek fan. Right? Her friends had to perform an intervention and sit her down and make her watch an episode of Next Gen when she was in high school. It was pretty funny. And now my kid makes a living in the video game industry. So I'm like, I'm enormously proud of that one. This one is in the family business.
Okay.
If you're a Burton, you're in education, right? My mom was a teacher. My older sister Letitia's a teacher. I have 2 nieces and 3 cousins who are teachers. If you are a Burton, you are probably in the education business. All the women on my mother's side of the family were teachers and social workers. My mother had careers both. All the men on my father's side of the family are ministers and soldiers. Well, I wasn't going into the Army. Studied for the priesthood. That didn't work out for me. But I feel like I sort of fulfill both sides of that genetic imprint in what I do. I feel like I'm certainly in the business of education, right? Through entertainment. And I definitely feel like there is a spiritual thread that runs through my life force that animates this career.
Okay. Wow.
There's definitely a spiritual thread, without question.
Okay. All right, so the fun part, we're going to do a quick lightning round.
Ooh. Lightning round.
Okay. All right, least favorite food?
Brussels sprouts. How do you feel about rutabaga? I don't like rutabaga either.
Favorite type of music?
Jazz.
Text or talking?
Talk.
Favorite day of the week?
Saturday.
Favorite city in U.S. besides the one you live in?
New York, New York.
Nickname your parents used to call you?
Bobby.
Last song you streamed or downloaded?
What's the sister's name who was fronting Alabama Shakes, has her own album out now? Brittany Howard! Thank you, ma'am.
Would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to talk to animals?
Speak every language in the world.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
How long does it take you to get ready?
Shorter than my wife.
Scale to 1 to 10, how good of a driver are you?
10.
Okay.
My wife would say 5.
Invisibility or super strength?
Invisibility.
Scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at keeping secrets?
I don't suck.
Favorite celebrity crush?
Tandy Newton. I get a pass for Tandy Newton.
Dawn or dusk?
Dusk.
If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
I'd want to... I'll take the antebellum South.
Okay. Do you? Okay.
As a white man.
Do you snore?
Yeah. You got a problem with that?
Place you most want to travel?
Anywhere.
Favorite junk food?
Ooh. I'm a sucker for some barbecue potato chips, man.
Okay. Favorite childhood TV show?
We used to watch The Wizard of Oz once a year, especially when we got a color TV. It was like, wow.
Okay. Favorite season?
I like summer.
Last Halloween costume?
I was a space pimp. Humpty Dimp, the space pimp.
Cake or pie?
Pie.
Okay. Now, this last question, I'm just going to warn you, you could very well have your pass revoked.
Gosh, I hope not.
Okay? Sweet potato or pumpkin pie?
I'm a black man. Pumpkin pie is an aberration. I'm sorry, y'all. Pumpkin pie is nasty. But it's a matter of taste. It's a matter of flavor. I grew up on sweet potato pie. I grew up on sweet potatoes and candied yams. I have nothing against pumpkins. I just don't want to eat them.
Okay. So last question. How do you want the world to remember you?
He told stories, especially to the kids.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been our great privilege. Mr. LeVar Burton, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, brother.
Thank you so much.
Really well done. Really well done. Let's hear it for Jamar. Lovely job. Thank you all very much for your time, your energy, and attention. I love you all.